Marriage is a price-fixing cartel that benefits women. This is the first video in a series I'm going to make about marriage. There's going to be maybe 5 or 6 of them. It's not marriage advice. It's not the sort of have a date night and communication is really important type thing. I'll be looking at reasons why marriage is a good thing and why we support it as a political party. We often describe ourselves as pro-family, pro-marriage, pro-life. So I'm going to look at some of the reasons why we support marriage. So, marriage is a price-fixing cartel that benefits women. What's a cartel? Well, a cartel, price-fixing cartel, is an agreement between companies. So, for example, if every petrol station in Scotland agreed that they were going to add 10 pence to their price of petrol, they could all charge a higher price because you've got to get your petrol from somewhere. And that would be a cartel, and that's illegal in Britain. It benefits the supplier and it disadvantages the customers. Now, in this argument here, I'm going to look at marriage using this sort of economic model. Now, obviously, using an economic analogy as a sort of exchange terminology isn't appropriate for marriage in lots of different ways, but there's just one way of understanding an aspect of marriage. I find it helpful. I'm not saying marriage is like an exchange agreement, but there's something in this that does capture something of the importance of marriage. Now, in economic models, people are often reduced to simplistic unidimensional actors. I know that, but simple models can help us to better understand complex systems. If we didn't make a start until we could include every factor in our model, we would never get started. So this is a simple model, but still I think it is helpful. Now, when I'm talking about marriage here, I'm talking about the traditional understanding of marriage as the context for sex between a man and a woman. So the idea would be no sex until you get married. And when you get married, you move in, have kids, start having sex. Obviously have sex before having kids. Stay together forever. That's the traditional understanding of marriage. Now, with fuzzier definitions of marriage, this argument still has some force, but it's at its strongest when we take that traditional understanding. And the argument is basically based on 2 facts. Fact number 1, women want commitment from men. Women tend to want a loving, stable relationship. That's a strong emotional desire that they have, and it's quite understandable because sex tends to lead to children. That's a huge responsibility, and mums want dad to be on the scene throughout their kid's life and beyond. They don't want to be left holding the baby, as the saying goes. Now, you might say in the age of contraception that's all changed. Well, it hasn't completely changed at all. There's still a very significant amount of truth in that point. Right, point number 2. Men want sex. They've got a strong sex drive. It's a natural biological thing, and they tend to be willing to have sex with lots of women without commitment. With many men, their sense of morality restrains that, or lack of opportunity restrains it. But for many men, most men, that's what they would like to do if they weren't restrained by those other factors. So whereas women often end up regretting casual sex, men often end up regretting missed opportunities for casual sex. Now, some people might say at this point, oh, those differences I've laid out there, they're just social constructs. But actually, they're the same in every culture. You can see it in the animal world to a significant degree as well. They can be explained through evolutionary psychology or as part of an ordained order. But I think we're on pretty safe ground saying that they are true. So in the light of those 2 facts, what strategy should women adopt? It seems sensible to only have sex when a man's committed to a permanent relationship. But how would you know? You just ask them? But I mean, they might pledge undying love and play along just to get sex. How would you know they actually mean it? Well, what you can do to make sure he's being honest, you can make him publicly express his commitment before friends and family, before God if they're religious, make it some sort of formal legal contract. And in doing that, that would be putting a high price on sex. That woman would be saying, if you like, the price for sex with me is lifelong commitment. Well, let's imagine if the man doesn't quite fancy all that commitment. Well, he can take his business elsewhere and see if we can find someone else to have sex with. Maybe another woman will have sex with him at a lower price, maybe no price at all. Casual sex, cheap sex. Now, the first woman's going to find it harder to get a man to pay her price for sex, which is marriage, if he can get it cheaper elsewhere. Now, imagine this scenario. This will make it clearer, I hope. Imagine an isolated island. There's just 10 single young men and 10 single young women. So the 10 women get together and say, right, what's the best strategy for us to adopt? Basically, we can charge what we like for sex. We can demand whatever conditions what we like. The men will just do whatever it takes. So if all 10 of us said, look, men, the price for sex with any one of us is you've got to build a cottage, start a little self-sufficient croft, and commit to us permanently, publicly, and legally before we'll have sex with you. And then we'll all have lifelong partners and our kids will have a dad. And if they did that on this island, the men would say, okay, that sounds good to me, let's get building cottages, and away it would go. So that would be an example of the women effectively creating a price-fixing cartel to their own benefit. Well, let's imagine this is a Scottish island. Let's imagine we're in a previous century. Who enforces this system of you don't have sex until you're married, until you're permanently committed to the woman? Well, it was generally enforced by men. Men like this one. Doesn't look like the typical feminist, does he? But men enforced a social institution, marriage, that existed to benefit women because it took men and made them behave the way women wanted them to. Now, some people say marriage is like patriarchy in action, but it doesn't quite look that way, does it? It's an institution that's designed to benefit women. But let's imagine on this island, 10 men, 10 women. Let's say one woman broke ranks and she said, oh, I'm not bothering with this deal. I'm going to have sex with men, whoever I like. I'm going to have sex with men without marriage. So suddenly, she's had sex with 5 of the men on the island. So that's 5 men who've now got the idea, you don't really need to commit to marriage to get sex. So the women's bargaining power is now reduced. So when another woman on the island demands total commitment in exchange for sex, that's no longer seen as viable. It seems a bit unreasonable. So they're going to have to start reducing the price for sex. And before you know it, they'll be saying, oh, to have sex with me, maybe cohabitation will do. Maybe just telling me you're committed will do. Because as supply increases, the price goes down. So the one promiscuous woman has harmed the other women's bargaining position and broken the power of the cartel. So the remaining women will look on her with disdain, and she might get called all sorts of uncharitable names. Now, some feminists today, they complain about this and they call it slut shaming. But in the context of the argument I've presented here, it actually makes sense. It's an attempt to shame women into behaving in a way that benefits women in general. Now, I'm not saying we should engage in that sort of stigmatization. I'm just saying that there's a logic behind it in the subconscious, one way or another. So when some contemporary feminists attack marriage and they encourage women to behave sexually like men, what they're really doing is encouraging women to throw away their bargaining power, and therefore women find it harder to get what they want from a man, which is long-term commitment. And men find it easier to get what they want in many cases, which is sex, including casual sex. And then for some reason, this so-called progress is classed as some sort of liberation for women, whereas it's the opposite. So marriage is a social institution that protects the interests of women, and the more widely it's upheld, the more effective it is. It makes men behave the way women want them to. Now, in the Scottish Family Party, you could describe us as being socially conservative. When we see something good in our society that's been undermined or has been undermined, we try and conserve and rebuild it. So we try to conserve and rebuild the culture of marriage in Scotland. Right, thanks for watching. I hope that was interesting. Do press subscribe to see the next part, which will be coming very soon. If you want to join the Scottish Family Party, there's a link below. But thanks for watching.